Salute, Bucharest! I wasn't as brave as Eugene, where she went full-on Romanian. I think I'll continue with English, because otherwise you will definitely sleep. So I'll try to keep you awake. You only have half an hour and then drinks, I promise you. They're all on me, don't worry, I'll be paying for all the drinks. I'm not paying for anything. But yeah, and obviously my pointer is not working. Perfect timing. Cool. Okay, so thank you for joining me for the last talk. As I said, how's everybody's conference? How was it? First KCD ever. I think the team did don't worry. The team did a great job, especially for their first conference. Extremely smooth. 450 people, I believe. Great setting. I think they deserve a round of applause, definitely. The team over here, I know there are a bunch of other volunteers. Great job. But thanks and welcome to the lesson. Welcome to the class. So today's class will focus on DevOps lessons from a primary school teacher. And we're going to look at strategies of how primary school teachers, and I specify primary school teachers for a reason, we're going to focus on strategies which might sound novel to us, but shouldn't be, and how we can use them on a day-to-day basis. But first, that's me, as Wouter specified, a little bit more hairy than usual, but what can he do? I'm Maltese in the Netherlands. I need to keep warm in some way or another. This is one way to do that. And I've put myself as a platform specialist up there. The reason I did that is because I've been using platforms for the whole breadth of my cloud engineering life. But I studied aerospace engineering. I was an automotive engineer, designing hybrid vehicles. So you can call me whatever you want. Hopefully it's something nice. But yeah, call me whatever you want. But one thing I am definitely not is a primary school teacher. And I say this because I want to give credit where credit is due for this talk. And that is my lovely partner. I asked her to send me a photo for this talk, and she sent me a photo with her mum, so I had to try and crop up my mother-in-law, which is a lovely person, but obviously the focus is on her. But anyway, this talk has been inspired by the endless amount of discussions I've had with her after she comes from work, and she talks about how she deals with kids, and how she deals with the craziness of the kids and teaching them. We talk about pedagogy, which is, and I'll read this, which is the study and practice of learning. And a lot of this is ingrained in primary school teachers. As I said, I am not a primary school teacher. I could definitely not entertain 20 kids in one room for more than 5 minutes, unlike what I'm currently doing. So, talking about DevOps, we can talk about CALMS. And CALMS is a framework that assesses the ability to adopt DevOps. It was coined by Jez Humble. For those of you who know Jez Humble, he's co-author of the DevOps Handbook and Accelerate, two extremely good books, which I suggest you all read. As engineers, we seem to focus a lot on the automation, the lean, and the measurement, because it's tech-related, it comes natural. We've had a various amount of talks about automation and measurement about it, and we seem to forget about culture and sharing, not as much. So this talk is going to focus on that. There's not going to be any Kubernetes. I'm not going to talk about Kubernetes. I'm not going to say the word Kubernetes, apart from the last 3 times I said Kubernetes, and this time as well. Actually, there is another once in the talk I say the word. So I want to make sure I still got you. I want you to give me a thumbs up when you hear the word. So yeah, in fact, just like every lesson, I'm going to get some interaction. The front line doesn't have to worry, you're not going to come on stage. But just like in the lesson, I want some interactions, and just as they do in primary schools, they get kids to use hand gestures. And this is used to make sure that, one, the lesson doesn't get interrupted by screaming kids, but also to make sure that the teacher gets a view of whether kids are understanding what they're saying. Do they agree? Do they disagree? Do they have something completely different? So I wanted to use these hand gestures, and these hand gestures only, please, for me. So while I'm going through my talk, if you feel comfortable, give me a thumbs up if you agree, fist if you disagree, and I've learned that this is the shaka sign when you're surfing, basically, if you have a different opinion or a different strategy to what I'm talking about. And again, as I said, all of these is what's used at primary school, where at least what my partner uses in her class at primary school. And the first thing we'll talk about is a theory called zone of proximal development. And the zone of proximal development states that learning can only be done just outside of what you currently comfortably do on your own, independently. So teachers don't actually create lessons. They don't want to create lessons outside of this ZPD. They don't want it to be too easy in the blue zone, which is things kids can do on their own, unsupported. And you don't want it to be too difficult in the red part, where they just cannot get it, even if it's supported. For them to learn actively, they want to be in the green zone, the zone of proximal development. And an example which was given to me is, so when you start addition as a kid, you start off learning how to add in tens. And then you add, you're in the green area of learning in tens, and as you do it, you get into the blue area. And once you're in the blue area, you can then start learning how to add in 20s, so that you go into the green region again. You learn more, then you learn how to add in 50s, in hundreds, and in thousands. Actually, you have to learn how to count first before you can even start addition. So you don't go from learning how to count to learning how to add in thousands. You need to do that step-by-step process and be within the green area. And the reason I'm saying this is you cannot expect, engineers and developers to go from coding in PHP, and yes, PHP is important as much as you like Go. It still runs 10,000 websites, some of 10,000 of the most popular websites in the world. You cannot expect them to go from PHP development to learning the intricacies of networking and service meshes and how the networking in Kubernetes works. There you go. Okay, still alive. Cool. And the reason I say this is there are a few managers here. I think it's extremely important to allow your engineers to grow. Because the more they grow, the more they learn. The more they learn, usually developers, the happier they are, the happier the devs, the better the software they create. And having them spend time in conferences like this, in workshops, especially smaller conferences like this, is extremely important. So our next lesson is called My Turn, Our Turn, Your Turn. Yes, these are the actual strategies to be used. So this process is where the teacher starts showing the class how to do addition, for example. So that's my turn. And they might write the process on the whiteboard, giving examples and success criteria in between. After that's done, so after the lesson is given, it's our turn, where the teacher will go through the addition process again, but this time with the kids chiming in, helping out, because they've learned it the first time with the teacher. And once that is done, the kids go off and learn it on their own. They still have the whiteboard to go over any difficulties, and there's still the teacher if they need help. And this process we can actually use by doing pair programming. Who here knows about pair programming? Who here actually uses pair programming? A little bit less hands, but pair programming is extremely important, and you can go through processes. You can have what's known as the tour guide pair programming, so that's my turn, where I'm programming and maybe a junior engineer is looking at me. and how to do things. You then go on to the driver navigator pair programming, and that's our turn. You're in collaboration of how to program. And finally, once they're comfortable, once your junior engineer is comfortable in the process, it's their turn, your turn. It's where they can then program on their own. So this is extremely effective in helping engineers, developers grow within themselves, rather than letting them try it on their own. Our next lesson is give one, get one. And this is where the teacher asks children to think of something, think of a topic, and think of something they know about that topic. They'll write it down, I don't know, for example, about dinosaurs. They'll write that piece of knowledge on a paper, they'll write it down, and then once that is done, they'll go around the class sharing that information. So they'll give one of the information they have, and they'll get one from each and every one from the class. And this is extremely important because it helps provide an understanding for the teacher of the lay of the land. What does the class know about a topic? Where can I start? What are the holes of the class, and where do I need to focus on? And again, similarly, within our industry, this knowledge harvesting activity is extremely important, which I don't think a lot of us do at the very beginning of a project. If you have a team and you have an end goal, you should come together, figure out who knows what, share that knowledge, give one and get one from everybody, and understand, do I have all the resources, all the tools to achieve that goal? If you want to create an AI chatbot, because AI is everywhere nowadays, do you have the knowledge about LLMs? Is there somebody within the team who knows about that? Do we need to bring somebody in? Do we need to send somebody and learn about LLMs? Is it even needed? Do I have all the appropriate permissions to deploy my programming and software into the world? If not, start off by understanding where you are, and that's what that give one, get one process allows us to do. The next topic is talking chips, and I think this is the best thing ever. This is where you get kids working in groups, and as with everything, you have some kids which are louder and some kids which are quieter. Talking chips allows us to ensure that everybody gets involved. You don't use poker chips like this with kids, but that's the only photo I could get. So what happens basically is you give chips to each and every kid within a group, and you can specify between 2 and 8 chips, for example, and everybody needs to use all of their chips, or at least a minimum amount of their chips. And you can also make sure that, you know, if you have somebody who doesn't stop talking, who's Mediterranean probably, and does not stop talking, you might want to set a limit on each chip for about 2 minutes or 3 minutes, so that they can quantify what they want to say in a short amount of time. So this ensures that everybody gets involved. Everybody understands what's happening, and you don't have the quiet ones who remain quiet and the loud ones who take over the place. So who here has been in a Scrum planning session? Not that I'm advocating for a Scrum, but who here has been in a Scrum planning session where you're a team of 5, 6, 7, 8, and only the team lead and maybe one extra engineer talks, and everybody stays quiet? Yeah, it's pretty much a good 90% of the audience there. So talking chips ensures that everybody gets engaged, and you want engineers to get engaged because you want to make sure that they're involved. They understand the goal and the processes. Why are you creating the software, and why are you achieving that goal? Why are you creating this business value? Talking chips, I think we should actually be using these, to be honest. If you're using it virtually, I'm sure there is a system online you can use, or you can program it yourself. We're all a bunch of very intelligent people here, where we can use talking chips to ensure that everybody gets involved. Penultimate lesson, expert groups. So this is where the class is divided into different groups. We have a topic, and each group focuses on an expert area of that topic. So, for example, the example I was given was they were studying the Mesozoic area, or the age of reptiles, where dinosaurs lived 250 to 65 million years ago. I'm sure I'm getting it wrong, and then I'm going to get a lot of comments later by actual experts. But you have different groups. You have group 1 who's going to focus on dinosaurs. Group 2 who's going to focus on paleontologists. Group 3 is focusing on how to extract dinosaur bones securely, for example. And group 4 is talking about rock formation and how that affects where the bones might be found. So these groups all then focus on that specific area. You then get one person from each group into a new group. So group A will have somebody from group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4, group B, similarly, C, so on and so forth. And they discuss each individual expert area. So this is increasing the knowledge of the whole class. And within our industry, this can be related to enabling teams. And I saw actually one of the sponsors talking about enabling teams. I was really excited. I think team topology, so if you haven't heard about team topologies, come and talk to me later, and I'll spend the next few hours annoying you about how amazing team topologies is. But a part of team topologies, there's this concept about enabling teams. And an enabling team is a group of people who become experts in an area and then help streamlined teams. So streamlined teams are your developers who produce value and create value for the business. And these enabling teams come in and help streamline teams to improve on the system. Tell them about new projects and new tools that they can use. So these expert groups help streamline teams improve on themselves. Because usually streamline teams don't have the time to go and research and become experts in a topic because they need to create value. And finally, higher order questions. Now, Socrates once defined teaching as the art of asking questions. And I am told that questioning, which is an extremely good means of knowledge transfer, a teacher could ask approximately 120 questions an hour in a class of 20 kids. That's a lot of questions. Usually they're very much sit down, why are you talking, are you ready, those kind of questions. But there are a lot of high order questions which they also ask as a means of teaching. And you usually get the procedural questions, as I said, the low-level ones, which are about 60 to 70% maybe. But the remaining ones, the high-order questions, allow kids to learn and improve and think and grow a lot better. So an example which I was given was that they were talking about Pompeii and Vesuvius, the volcano that erupted and killed everybody in Pompeii. And the questions can help children reflect on any information, because you can ask them, what do you think people felt like when they lived in Pompeii, when Vesuvius exploded? They commit information to memory. If somebody is going to ask you a high order question, as they think about answering you, they're committing that information to memory. So one of the examples I was given was, where do you think the people were when the volcano exploded? And questions encourage discussion and stimulate new ideas. The example I was given was, imagine you had a time machine and you went back in the past. How can you convince everybody in Vesuvius that in Pompeii that Vesuvius is going to explode the next day without making them think that you're crazy? Questions like this encourage that discussion and thinking and new idea formation. Now, within our industry, sometimes we get asked the low-level questions, and that can be, you can feel unheard, unvalued. If a manager is constantly asking you, have you finished this task, you can feel you're micromanaged. But instead, if you ask procedural questions, if you ask high-level questions like, can you talk to me about the process by finishing this task? You're a little bit more valued, and you can start thinking of, okay, how am I going to tackle this issue? But there are two caveats with regards to asking questions. The first one is you need a good balance of both the procedural and the high level. You definitely need the procedural because you want to get things done. And if you're going to ask procedural questions, make sure they're in the appropriate format and in the appropriate time frame. How many of you have ever been in a meeting and you probably said this could have been an email or a Slack message? Yeah, those are procedural questions. Those are the ones, has this been done? Yes, no, let's get it over and done with. We don't need a full 30-minute meeting, 1 hour meeting for that. And the other one is, the second caveat is, if you're gonna ask high order questions, you need to be comfortable with silence. You need to allow people to think to answer you. Easier said than done, especially for somebody like me who's Mediterranean and needs to fill the void. In fact, my partner said, you need to allow at least 10 seconds of silence for a kid to answer you. And I'm assuming it's going to be the same for us adults as well, maybe a little bit more than 10 seconds. And if they don't answer you within those 10 seconds, you might want to rephrase the question. So let's do an experiment. I'm going to ask a procedural question because I don't have enough time to go over a high order question and a full-on discussion. But I'll do a 10-second count. And I want to ask you, do you think my talk has been useful to you? Yep, 10 seconds. See, that was annoyingly long for me to do. I almost caved halfway through. So 10 seconds can be long. And you do need to allow that space for people to think. So I asked a very simple question, which I'm glad I think most of you answered with thumbs up. I think I didn't see any fist or shuck up, but if you did do a fist or a shuck up, please come and talk to me. I would love to learn from you. And that's it for all the lessons I have for you today. That's our learning. But before we go into beer drinking contest, probably, the next slide is probably the only slide everybody will remember. Whatever I said over the last 25 minutes or so, you probably won't remember, but this slide everybody remembers. It's not always learning and lessons. It's actually quite fun at times. And I usually get these random photos from my partner where you get a cow with an interesting tail there in the middle, a pumpkin for Halloween on your left. Yes, that is a pumpkin. And the engineer in the making on your right. Definitely an engineer in the making on the right. So yeah, these photos come on a regular basis at times. So here are the books I mentioned. Highly suggest you read all of them. If you haven't already, keep them, treat them like Bible, probably. I'll let you take a photo. And that's me. The books, sure. So, as I said, DevOps Handbook gives you a good story of how DevOps came about. It actually, I think the first paragraph talks about automotive engineering, which I found really interesting because I did work in the automotive industry. Accelerate, which is, I mean, Nicole, Jez, and Jim did amazing within the industry. Pillars of the industry. And team topologies, which I think every organization should start looking at how to organize their teams. Yep. So that's me. Platform specialist, or whatever you want to call me, as I said. I've tried to hit every buzzword possible. when I do put this up, and I'm not changing it, somebody shouted out, "You forgot ML." Okay, fair enough. Cool. If you have any questions, happy to discuss at any point in time over a beer. Thank you.
Thank you, Timo.